This conference will now be recorded.
start learning about SUIM transaction code. So, what exactly is SUIM? Let me open SUIM. So SUIM is one transaction code where the complete security people can get into the transaction code and search for roles, users on based on different criteria. Okay, for example, so you want to know one particular role is assigned to how many users. Okay, you can go to this transaction code and get the data. You can also get the data through AGR_users table, but instead of opening the table and getting the data, so here, there is no need to remember the table. So you just need to give the criteria, the role name, and execute. We'll get the list of users. In the same way, we have different things which we can use for searching. This is only for search database, like so nothing else. You can't do anything here. So you can easily search for anything. It can be role, it can be operation object, it can be profile, it can be users. Okay, it can be transaction codes, whatever it is. If you want to search for something, you can come here and search it. Okay, so that is the use of this SUIM. So for example, there is a suddenly a manager will come and ask for, okay, so how many users are there in the system? How many active users are there in the system? Active means user should be valid today, should not be expired. So now you need to get data on all the users whose valid to date is greater than today. Okay, so all that data you can get from table as well. So, but you need to know the table names and all. Okay, instead of that, you can just directly come to SUIM transaction code and execute, giving the criteria as per the requirement, and you can get the results. Okay, so any questions on that? So we'll try to see what exactly is SUIM and how to use the transaction code. So today we'll completely discuss about this transaction code itself. So this has lots of things. So we'll just discuss about only this transaction code. Okay, so this particular transaction code SUIM. So whatever you are search for, okay, for example, you are search for users, then you need to get into this particular thing. Okay, you want to search for roles. That means to be very simple, to explain you guys very simply. So if you want to have list of users as an output, so you need to get into this one. You need to have list of roles as output, you need to get into this one. List of authorizations, you need to get into this one. List of authorization objects, you need to get into this one. So for example, my requirement is I need to get the list of users who are having one particular role. Then I need the list of users, right? So I need to get into this particular user. Okay, so I need to just click on this. So it will just open all these things, and then again users by complex selection criteria. I need to get into this. Then again I have to give users by complex selection criteria and execute this. So once I click on that, now it will show me the complete different fields which I can give as an input. So based on my input, so users will be displayed. For example, so I need to give, so I am in users by complex selection criteria. Means for me, the output will be list of users now. Okay, now if I give some role name, for example, G star MAST. So that means now if I execute, it will show all the users who are having this the role which starts with Z and which has MAST in between. I'm just trying to execute now. Okay, so these are the usernames. So these are the usernames which are having the role. Okay, if you want to cross check, you can just cross check. So I can just open. So if you want to cross check whether that has any role, you can go to SU01 and open that user and get the, so or else I've clicked on role assignments. Here you can see that for this role, for this user, you can see that is Z master, MAST is there. Okay, for this user, you can see here it is there. Like that, every user, all this code has satisfied with the criteria which I have given. So these users have come as an output. In the same way, so what else we have? So what are the different things we have in this particular users? So if you want to give a group, okay, so group for operation, for example. So what are the different groups? You can just click on F4. You can see all the groups in the system. For example, let's say this, that is demo, right? Okay, so I'm just removing this. And now if I execute, I'll get all the users who have been assigned with the demo user group. So like that, every field which, so these many 79 users are there, which has the demo as a user group. Like that. So this user group generally is, if you remember, there are two user groups in SU01. So one is in log on data, another one is groups tab. So this one is log on data. This second field is the groups tab one. Okay, if you want to check by reference ID, user, alias, role, you can check by profile also. You can check by transaction code as well. So you can just give a transaction code and it will display all the users having access to the transaction code. Nothing but the system internally will check. So what are the transaction code in which role, and that role is assigned to that user or not. So that calculation will be done by that user. So if you want to check by operation object, so if I give you some, for example, s underscore user underscore group. So if I click on execute now, it will show all the users which have this particular operation object assigned to them. That can be from any role, guys. So that can be from any role, but those are the list of users which who have access to this operation object. So it might be taking some time because the list may be huge. Okay, so now if you want to give the, here I am giving only object. So I can give the object along with the field and values as well. So for that, here there is another thing called operation object. If I am giving it here, so it will ask me for fields and values also. If I want to give s underscore user group one particular activity 02. So how many users have access to change a user? That means, so s underscore user group activity 02 is changing a user. So if I give that criteria and execute, I'll get to know all the list of users who have that access. Okay, like that. Okay, so that's something like 3154 users have access to that particular object. Okay, so okay, so for example, now if I want to give, I want to search for object along with the values. So s underscore user underscore grp and click on enter. Now it will show up all the fields and fields in that particular object, for example, class and activity 02, if I'm giving activity 02 and execute, now it will show up only the users who have this group and activity only 02. Okay, like that. So if you want to search by authorization object, inside that there is a field and value. That way also you can search. So basically this particular transaction code is only for searching. Okay, so the complete data you can just, instead of using the tables, whatever I'm searching, if you know the table name, you can directly get into the table name and also search for it. So if you, this is an easy way. So instead of getting into the table, and in few clients, right, few projects, so we don't have access to tables. So that time this transaction code will be useful. So 3037 roles are there. Sorry, users are there with selection criteria. What was that? So s_user group with activity 02. So activity 02. So like that, if you want to check for another object also, you can just give another object. Then it will check. So this object and this object. So you can see that this is all conditions are and. So and also you guys can search by valid from valid to also output device. So whatever the list of attributes are there in SU01, with all that you can search. So here you can search that what type of lock. Okay, lock is there or not lock. So administrator lock, not lock, incorrect login attempts. So there are two different locks, right? So you can just check by that locks. If you want to check only the locks who have been logged themselves by incorrect login attempts, so you can just select this one, set, and execute. Now you will get all the list of users who have been logged themselves due to incorrect login attempts. Okay, so all users with administrator or password. So this will show up all the users whatever the lock is. So only users without locks. So if you select this, then so if you're selecting that, it will show up all the users who are without locks. So till now we have discussed on users. Okay, users by complex selection criteria. Okay, so if you get into this by user ID, if I click on that, so I can just get the list of users by only user ID. So the only field will be here is user ID. So what I can say is all this by user ID, by role. For example, let's see here it's only user group, okay, user log. So whatever we have seen in that, so this is a subset of that. Okay, in the same way, by role, by profile, authorization value, transaction authorization, all these are subset of the first one. So first one has everything. So always better to use on the first one. Okay, so another thing is users with unsuccessful logons. So this is again the same one. Okay, so whatever the users who have not logged in and logged because of incorrect, so they can just have this. So by logon date and password change with critical authorizations. See, for example, you need to know the list of users who have not logged in the last 3 months. So now what I give is number of days since last logon. So if I give 90 days and execute, I'll get the complete list of users who have not logged into the system from last 90 days. Like that. So, and number of days since password change. So these are all different criteria which you can just use it. Okay, so user with the product password, user with initial password, users with deactivated passwords. So you need to get the complete list of users who have been password has been deactivated. So you need to check only this and execute like that. So these are different user criteria, user attributes, and user criteria which you need to give as an input, and based on that, the output will be list of users. So with critical authorization, that is also you need to give the authorizations. Okay, you can just give the authorizations, and this I just don't want to discuss on that. This will be talking when GRC will come into picture. Okay, so this is the complete, and the first thing which I have not discussed. So this is for central user administration. So this is, as I said, that we have already discussed on CUA concept, that is obsolete now. People are not using at all. So, but it is still there in the system, but there is no. It's already obsolete. Okay, so and the next one is roles. This also has a similar pattern. So roles by complex selection criteria and all the others. So these are all subsets of first one. So we will see the first one. How does that work? Here, as I am in roles, so easy to understand means we can understand easily that the output of whatever you are giving, the output of that will be a list of roles. Okay, so roles by complex selection criteria. So if I give a username here, so I will get the list of roles who have been assigned to, which have been assigned to that user. So for example, if I give an authorization object, so I get the list of roles as output. So till now, the users, we are getting the list of users as output. I am into roles by complex selection criteria now. So I'll get the list of roles. So pretty much it's the same. So you can just, if you want to search by role name itself, for example, G star, MAST star, I'll just get all the roles with that particular name. Okay, so if you want to search by description, so if I want to search single roles, only composite roles, like that. Okay, and this is something interesting. So if I want to search with a valid, so there are three options here. So if I select first one, all roles record plus of user assignment. For example, so I'm giving a transaction code here, SU01. And execute now. So I have selected all roles regardless of user assignment and single roles and composite roles. If I execute now, I will get all the list of roles. It can be single role, it can be composite role. So you might ask that a composite role doesn't have a T code, right? So it will take in such a way that composite role, again in that single role, if he is having in the composite role, if that single role is having SU01, then that composite role also will be displayed. Okay, so next, it doesn't even bother whether that roles are being assigned to any user or not. So that's the reason the first option, all roles regardless of user assignment, whether that role is assigned to user or not, it will just display all the roles in the system. So the second option is without user assignment. It will show now all the roles with having SU01 and which are not assigned to any of users. Okay, so the next one is with valid assignment off. So user 52, it is user 52 here I have given. If I search now, I will get the complete list of roles having SU01 which are assigned to this user. Okay, so there are three options here. And remaining thing are pretty much same. You can just search by transaction, you can search by authorization object, you can search by authorization object along with that field values as well. Okay, so along with that you can search by created by. For example, you need to get the list of roles which are created by some particular user, so you can get that as well. So this is completely role by selection criteria. So you will get the complete list of roles, okay, based on the input which you are giving. Okay, so these things are seems to be easy, okay, the way it looks, but until you use this, so you can be familiar with each field, how to use that. So you should just explore, you should have your own requirements. Okay, so I want to get list of roles having this particular authorization object. So just figure it out and give that object and execute, you'll get the list of roles. Like that, you just need to explore. Okay. So now going to profiles. So we'll not be using anything, but if you want to know, for example, there is an operation object, you want to know what are the profiles having that operation object. Like that, if you want to get into the profiles, so we can use this. So will not be. So and again the authorizations, if you want to, for example, there is an authorization object, so you want to know how many authorizations have this particular object. So that time you need to come here, an authorization object. For example, I have to give I need to figure out what are the authorization objects having a one particular field. Okay, so I can just give a field and execute. So or else I just need to know what are the authorization objects in a particular class. So I can just give that class and execute. I'll just get the complete list of authorization objects. Okay, so now transactions. So this is also important, which executable for a user. That means if I select a user and give a username and execute, I will get the complete list of transaction codes that user is having access to. In the same way, if I select role and give a role name, I'll get the complete list of transaction codes which have been assigned to that role. The same way, profile and authorization. So your manager will come and ask, okay, this particular user, what are the transaction codes he can access? So he can just come here and just give the user and execute. You will get the complete list of transaction codes he can execute. Okay, now this is comparison. Okay, now this is like a comparison of users, comparison of roles, comparison of profiles, and comparison of authorizations. So comparison of profiles and authorizations will not be using much, but will definitely be using comparison of roles and comparison of users. So if you want to compare two users, for example, there was an issue. There was an issue means one user is able to authorize successfully, and another user is getting some error. So you want to just everything seems to be same, but this guy is having able to access something, another guy is not able to access. So you just need to compare these two users now. So at that time, you just come here and give user A and user B. At any point of time, you can just compare only two users. So user A and user B, and just give execute. And now it will show what are the roles that users are having in that, what are the transaction codes in that objects, in that fields and that values. Till that level, it will compare. So it will show green. If both the users are having, it will show green. So whatever is red, that means, so that is different. This user is not having, that user is having, or that user is having, this user is not having. That's how the comparison will show up here. So in the same way, if you want to compare the roles, you can just give two roles. You can just, for example, maybe I can just show you guys comparing. We'll try to compare two roles so that you can just see that screen how it looks. So for example, maybe I'll take this role itself and role B. I'll take some other role. So I just want to compare these two roles. So I've just given these two roles and executing. Now it will show me up what are the authorization objects, what are the decodes in these two roles. Okay, so if it is green means both are having, red means so only one. See, this now, this is one role and this is another role. This is the authorization object. Okay, this is not having, but this is having. Okay, this is authorization object, this is not having, this is having. This authorization object, both the roles are having. Like that. So all the authorization objects, it is showing up. Okay, so what I have done is, so I can just double click on one of the authorization. For example, s underscore user underscore agr. I have double clicked on that. So in that, if I double click inside that, what are the fields and what are the values? That also I can compare. For example, I have double clicked on that. Here you can see that. So values 0, 3. Okay, and so activity group is star. These two are the fields in that particular object. Okay, so activity is 0, 3, 22, 22. These object values are there in this particular role, but this particular role doesn't have this. Okay, like that. So I just go back. So if I double click on each one, I can just get into the object level also. Sorry, so field level also. So which field is available for what user, what role, and what was the missing values for the other role. Like that, I can just compare. Okay, so this will be useful while troubleshooting. So for example, there are two roles, both have a similar access, but there is somewhere something. So one role is having some access, one role is not having some access, but everything is same. So somewhere something is there, but you want to search every object, every field. For example, there are 100 objects in that role, so you can just go and check manually, right? So that time we can just use this to compare. Everything will be green, and there will be somewhere red. That means so that there is a discrepancy there itself. So this is where this is how to compare. And values list. So values list means, so this is also a similar one. This is like the other way around. You can just ignore this because, for example, roles in users. Right? If I just execute this, so I can just give the, if you see the title users by complex selection criteria, it is taking to me, taking this to users by complex selection criteria itself. So in the same way, each one will be taken to the same which we have already discussed. So there is no point of this. So the last one is change documents. So if you guys remember, we have seen the change documents in SU01. Okay, so at that time I have discussed the complete history of that user will be there, who has created. So what are the roles assigned, when they have assigned, okay, whether the who has reset the password, whatever the changes were done to that user for a particular interval of time. If you want to search, you can just search there. That is from SU01. So the same screen which we have discussed on that day, that can be navigated from this particular SUIM as well. For example, if you want to check the change documents for, so along with the users, here we have the change documents for roles, role assignment, profile authorization. For example, there is a role. We want to see the change document for that role. That means who has created. Okay, so what are the transaction codes they have assigned? What are the authorization objects they have assigned? After maybe a few days, someone has modified that role. They have added additional access to that role. Now, who was that? Who has added that? When was that added? All that details, complete the history of that role. If you want to look into that, so you can just come here and give that. For example, we'll see for role itself. This is for role assignment. So I'll go for roles. So I'll just give the role name. For example, let's say I'll just taking the same role again and again. So I will just give that role. So now change by, I'm just ignoring. So from date, so I'll just remove this. Means if it is blank, means it will consider anything from beginning. Okay, so overview of change documents. I just want overview everything. So if you want to only creation and deleted roles, that means you want when it was created, when it was deleted, what are the operation objects, what are the T codes assigned, all that data you don't need. Then you can just select only this one. But for now, I just need everything. So I'll just select this one and execute. Now the list, complete list. See, this role was created on this date. Okay, so this time by this particular user using this, and what are the changes he has done. So attributes has been changed. Okay, so role description has been given, operation profile has been created, transactions has been assigned. Now, if I double click on each one, so I have double clicked on transaction, then I'll get to know what is the transaction code he has been added. So like that, if I double click on authorization, so what are the authorization at that time? What was the authorization which was added to that? Like that. So if I just double click on that, I'll get more details into that. So this is the complete change history of roles. In the same way, I can just get the change history of the users to execute this. See this screen, if you guys remember, that is the same screen which we went through SU01 also. So profiles, authorizations. So for all these things, we can have the change documents. So this is a transaction code which has nothing to do. Okay, it doesn't do anything, but it only helps us to get the data based on our criteria. So other than that, it doesn't have any much action to do in that transaction code. Okay, so is this transaction code clear? Any doubts in this transaction code? Okay, fine. So I just want to start the troubleshooting as well, but troubleshooting it will completely take more than 1 hour actually. So I'll start troubleshooting tomorrow itself, and maybe the next day we'll see these two topics. With that, we'll complete SAP security basics, and also will from the next day we'll start JRC. So are you guys clear with whatever I have explained till now? If you guys are having any questions, please let me know. Okay guys, so for today just explore this particular transaction code SUIM, get into that system and try to explore each option. So try to execute each option and see the results, how it's been populated. Okay, so yes, that's it for today. So tomorrow we'll see the same time, we'll see the troubleshooting part. So that would be most important one. So you guys don't miss that. Okay, fine. Thank you guys. If you don't have any questions, you can just close this. Thank you.